Good evening. Welcome to the Mancunian Way. I was not meant to be on. I was like, first things change. I'm not sticking around. I just didn't want to keep everyone waiting much longer. I don't know anywhere anybody is. Hey, it is what it is. So good evening to everyone. I don't know who's in the comments anymore. I can't see the comments because I'm on the car. So basically, I'm here to wait for Rich. Spartacus is joining, Ed's joining, and whoever else is joining. I wasn't meant to be joining. I was meant to be having some time away, but hey, plans change, I guess. Anyway, good evening to you all. I hope everyone is okay. My mic's cutting off. My mic's cutting off. One minute. Let me see if I can start somewhere. Can you hear me now? Hello? So let me know you can hear me. Oh, one's here. Somebody's joined. Somebody's here at last.
Now, Martin, you moved it forward 15 minutes during my sleep. How am I meant to know? Come on.
I don't know where anybody is.
Good morning.
Good morning. Here.
How are you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're a bit crumbly.
Yeah, it's because I'm in a really bad area. Like I said, I'm not meant to be on.
Yes.
Oh, I'm outside the hospital car park. I'm not meant to be on. Never mind. Yeah, Rich, you carry on while I sort my mic.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I will just load up the comments to see what they are and hopefully dissect whether this is the greatest crisis in City's history, as some are saying, or whether it's a couple of game blip due to injuries and playing young players and everything else. To chat about Wolves, are Wolves going to be easy this Saturday, or are they going to be the Wolves who, certainly at both Arsenal and Old Trafford proved very tricky? So Ozzy is joining me, Martin is joining me at the moment, and we will go through and really dissect, is it a crisis? Is it a hiccup? And where we go forward and what our problem will be for Wolves, who will be available for Wolves, the questions that we have. And do we have you back, Martin, or are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay, yeah.
Right, that better, right? Yeah. Is there a crisis? Like I said, I'm trying to stay quiet.
I think it's too early to know. I mean,
Do I think it's a bit worse than last season? Not a cat and hell's chance.
no.
Are the past two defeats and performances bad? 100%. I think people have chucked the baby out with the bathwater. It is what it is. I think people are just bottom lipping at the minute. It is what it is. You know, to me, there's no crisis. It's not worse than last season. The only crisis we've got are injuries right now.
Yeah, that is pretty shocking state.
You know, I think the teams that we've been beaten by, the United one's the United one. It's a derby. I think the Bodo one is probably the one that's got everyone going a bit.
Yeah, it's you know, the interesting thing on that, and I know Ozzy and I had a chat about that this week. I'm the opposite. I felt when we lost to Leverkusen, I said it on the show at the time that for me,
just do this a minute. Sorry, I'm just trying to. I'm not got a clue. Foggy, thank you for 10 membership, mate. You sure are a legend. Thank you so much. I can't get it on screen, but thank you. The comments will get interactive with when Ozzy gets there, I promise.
Yeah, for me, Bodo was always going to be a nightmare. I said it back at the Leverkusen game. It's why I was so annoyed about the team we played against Leverkusen and the way we played. You know, whatever way you look at it, and you know, if they were a 50 million team, and a 50 million team by Norwegian standards is pretty expensive, but they're playing, you know, you're playing below zero, you're playing on a plastic pitch, you're playing north of the Arctic Circle, you're flying somewhere miles away, you know, pretty much flying within 24 hours after a bad derby defeat, which was, even if we'd have won, it was a hard game. It was a hard game at the end of a busy January. So for me, I kind of always felt Bodo was going to be a loss. The derby, on the other hand, I thought we'd win. They played miles better than I thought they were capable of, but we were off it. We were and not, you know, some games you have a player or two are off it. I felt in the derby, and I guess to a degree in Bodo as well, though I kind of understand that one. We were all off it, and it's why when there were rumours about something going on behind the scenes at City, it felt like something had gone on. It felt like before the derby there'd been a big argument, or something had happened behind the scenes, or you know, something had hit the players, because they were all off it. Now, why we're not going, you know, the other part was pretty obvious. You know, we've lost. The team was this season built around, you know, Gonzalez. He's injured and Rodri's come back. Rodri, one of the best players we've ever had, but 18 months out with an ACL, needs time to find rhythm, to find fitness, to find physicality. And then you've got, you know, a defender you've plucked in at 24 hours notice from Watford. You've got Kuzanov, who, you know, I think will be a great player for us, but he's still coming back, having hardly played any Premier League football. You know, Rico Lewis, who isn't a right back, brought in pretty much last minute to play, clearly not expecting to play.
Rich, I need to go in a minute, so I'm gonna have to put the link in the chat. If anyone wants to join, you can. There's not much we could do. I don't know where everybody is.
Yeah,
I'm a bit. Yeah, I don't know where people are.
Okay, well, I will. I'll get the comments up on my phone, because I.
So if anyone wants to join, there's a link. Please be respectful. I'll get you in. Otherwise, it's going to be Rich talking to the camera in a minute.
Yeah, which we don't really want.
Guys, the best laid plans go awry, sadly. So yeah, yeah. For me, I'm just listen. I think we'll just get it back. We'll get it back as best we can at the moment. I don't worry. I think we'll be fine in the end. Title, yeah, title may be gone. We've got to beat Galatasaray. We've got to beat Wolves. If we beat Wolves and we beat Galatasaray, then yeah, things look a lot different.
Yeah, I mean that's the interesting
Things
thing. I've
look
seen
a
a
lot
lot. Yeah, I've seen a lot of comments saying, things in Europe are as
different.
bad as last year or
You
things like
don't
that.
even
And
want to see the comments I've seen.
yeah,
Don't give
and it's
Rodri
like,
an extension. Don't give Foden an extension. Sell Haaland. Sack Pep. What was the other one I saw? I mean, at this point, I'm thinking of like liquidating the club and let's start from
yeah,
scratch. Let's go into Rangers and go back to wherever.
yeah. I mean, people saying top 8 unlikely with the win against Galatasaray. Well, not if we win by, if we had a decent win against Galatasaray, we beat them 3-0 or something, we'd almost 100% be top 8. If we scrape them 1-0, we're probably tossing a coin. So, it's but last time we were playing for our lives. Last year we were playing for 24th place and getting a playoff that we knew was going to be against one of the teams that just missed out. And ultimately, if you look at the teams just outside the 8, it's Barcelona, it's City, it's Atletico, it's
Rich, I'm gonna dip. I'm gonna have to come home and go on camera. I can't leave it
okay,
like this. Give me 10
okay,
minutes. I'll be home.
right, okay. So talking about that, it's not dead. It's not dead. We are going to, if we finish just outside the 8, then we've got 2 extra games, which if our injuries are continue, is going to be a massive problem. If they don't continue and we start to get players back, that's not going to be a problem. The top half of the 8 is where most of the strong teams are this year. There's one or two down the bottom, but the chances are you're going to get a knockout game, which you should really win, and then we're back in the 16. So, I think perspective is needed that yes, the last 2 games have been truly awful. Yes, we have an injury problem at the moment, which is quite material, but it's not a crisis like last season. We are second in the league. We are in, 1 foot in the final of the Carabao Cup. We're still in the FA Cup. We've got, a tie in the next round we should win, which puts us, getting through the first 2 rounds of the FA Cup, and we're second in the league. So this time last season, we were heading out of Europe, or we were just being drawn against Real Madrid in a knockout at a time we had huge problems. We were struggling to make the top 4 in the league, and we were out the Carabao Cup. Obviously, what we had going for us last season was a fight for top 4 and a fight for the FA Cup. And this year we've got far, far more than that. I think the team have acted, and we've signed Guehi, which, whichever way we look at it, adds a one of the top centre backs in the Premier League, adds them to the team. He will be in. He will make a significant difference to the team. Kusanov and Guehi is a solid centre back partnership. I think Max Alain's done well, but it really isn't the time to put him in the team and to go with an 18-year-old to rely the team. So I think perspective's needed. On the flip side, for those who are over the top, emotional and react to the games, we were terrible in the last 2 games. Against United. We lacked tactics. We lacked energy. The injuries meant we had players playing who none of us would have picked in those positions for that game. And I think we talked at great length the week before about the importance of getting on top, of starting well, of silencing the Old Trafford crowd, and of holding on to our superiority. And whichever way we looked at it, we limped into the game. We picked, some players that perhaps even with the injuries we may not have done in those positions. And nobody looked like they had the heart, the fight, or the soul for a derby game. In many ways, a lot of derbies in recent years, we've seen United like that, slow, lethargic, lacking in passion. And we had those, we played like that. So, everyone's every right to feel disappointed. And clearly, if we play like that, we did against United, if we play like that in other games, we're not going to win the games. And if we don't beat Wolves, if we don't beat Galatasaray, if we start to drop down in the league and let Villa go ahead of us, we let Liverpool go ahead, then clearly it becomes a crisis. So, we are at a tipping point. Personally, I'm an optimist. I think Guehi comes in. I think we start to see players like Gonzalez, etc., come back from injury, and things look very different. But it's Jack. Hello, it's going to be a Coventry City for him.
Looks like it at the minute. Great win against Millwall the other night.
Yeah. So no, I was just saying that for me, we're on the cusp of problems if we let things continue like they have the last two games. They were awful, but at the same time, we're still in an incredible position in the season in 4 competitions. Is Guehi going to be? Guehi coming in is going to be dramatically important. But the question is, can we get Gonzalez back from injury soon? How long? What's happening with Nunes? How long is he out for? Because we need Diaz. We need him back because we need some strength at the back.
Yeah, I'd say we're in 3.5 competitions because in the league we just need to try and. I know I did say it was over the other day, but it's one of those where there's 2 sides to it. Guehi coming in definitely strengthens the centre half positions. However, that doesn't really help our attacking threat with our 2 most important players on a really bad run of form. So I don't know if you can contribute that to tactics weren't great.
Part of me thinks those 2 things almost go together. That to me, it's not a massive coincidence that as the defensive injuries have happened, the form has got worse going forward, because I think it gets to a point last season when we're in the middle of October, November, our attacking line were out of form, but they were paranoid because they pretty much felt if they lost the ball, we were going to concede a goal. And if you remember that sort of final Sporting Lisbon
the
kind
Brighton
of period,
game.
It felt like if we lost the ball, the other team were going to score. And so then every time, if you're an attacking player, firstly, you've got to try and press harder. You're probably using more energy than you should because you're trying to stop things. But every time you make a pass, you're essentially scared that you do it wrong, there's a goal. So then you start thinking about things, you start getting more negative.
When you're playing with fear.
Whereas when if you're playing like City in 23, or you're playing like, Mourinho's Chelsea or something like that as an attacker, you pretty much know if I do anything wrong, defense has got it. We never concede. And so, I don't know, I've kind of felt that, yeah, if we get the stability back at the defence, I think some of the form, there may be a player, there may be a player who's out of form, but generally I think the form will come back up front. I think Haaland needs a rest. To me, he looks tired. Pep says he isn't, but I think that's just Pep.
To be honest, I don't listen to anything he says.
No, I don't believe a word. Yeah. Don't believe a word he says in press conferences.
He does look tired, but then again, he didn't need to play against Exeter. I know we might have tried to play him to get him back into form, but I don't think scoring against Exeter is really going to give him any confidence.
Yeah,
I think when he has played, I haven't really seen. Normally, when a striker goes through a bad run or when they don't score many goals, I remember early in the season when Haaland was scoring, there was other side to his game. His defensive side was good. His hold-up play was a lot better. His link-up play, he was asking for the ball in a lot easier positions. He's kind of gone back to the last couple of years, Haaland, recently. Now, I'm not sure if that's down to the tactics or Pep's told him to do that because of the frailties at the back. But the problem is, if you play a game with fear, you can play a pub team and they'll sense it straight away. When you lose the ball and you're like, oh shit, what do we do here? We can't string two passes together because we're always too scared of losing it. We're not looking at making a forward pass or making a run down the byline like Doku should have been doing against Dalot. He was on the yellow card after about 7 minutes, should have been a red.
Both said fullback, yeah. And the left back, he got a
Luke
card.
Shaw, the Burger King.
It was I didn't understand why we didn't just run at their fullbacks. Dalot early on, and the ref knew from the reaction it was a yellow close to a red. So Dalot was almost on a yellow and a half. He wouldn't have needed. He wouldn't have needed to do much to be sent off. And then they get yellow the other side, and you're like, we can just run at them. We've got two fast, pacey wingers. They're in trouble, and we didn't do it. But we just, I don't know. I had a bit of a debate with Ozzy. Ozzy was saying, "Oh yeah, no, 9 players were crap, and Donnarumma and Kusanov were brilliant." But I was a bit like, they all weren't that good. I mean, they had their moments, but they still didn't organise the defence around them. I was a bit disappointed that Donnarumma didn't take a bit more of a grip of the defence with his experience and his knowledge, and talk to them.
More vocal,
a bit more than he. That's why I thought something was up. I just, it's a bit like they'd all got a bit of food poisoning, or someone
had Spurs lasagna incident.
It was just a bit like that. Just every player lethargic, every player off it, every player frustrating, and that can just be a result of the injuries, the tiredness. The players who are, probably shouldn't have been playing but were playing. And I think you can excuse that from a couple of them. I think Ake looks absolutely knackered to me.
He's playing on injections, isn't he? He's gripping his thigh every 5 seconds, so I'm not going to blame him because he's risking his career.
Well, he's risking his. He is, and he did it last. I think we owe him a lot because he did that last season. We kept playing him when we knew his hamstrings were toast, and we're doing it again. And the same with. And I just hope that the fans recognise that, and that no one's giving him stick for like Akanji got last season, where Akanji played 15, 20 games last season. He shouldn't have played, and he played them because they're professionals. They want to do the right thing for the team, but then they can't. If you're injured, you can't play close to as well. You're not quick enough. You're not energetic enough. You haven't got the stamina.
You're
20% of your brain's on your leg and not the ball or the attacker. And so I hope we're not smashing them for that. And clearly,
if there is anyone to smash, it's not Ake, because I think I've been looking at the wingers after the derby, because half the job was done in 10 minutes. The game was there to win. We bent them over the table. Just get down and dirty, like frustrate them, get both their fullbacks sent off, and it's an easy game. Then it's so simple, and I just don't see why we didn't just go for it. Because what's the worst? We lose 2-0, we lose 5-0, we lose.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You're not going to lose any more ground for that.
Well, exactly, and you're not going to lose. You're not going to lose any more ground. Mind you, we did try and lose 3, 4, or 5. I mean, we did. We did. Is it good? Well, is it good defending to when someone's just offside? Means you played the offside trap properly, or is it just
we tried to do that
risky?
So many times.
I think I look at that and I think, is it a risk, or is it just being, have we done the right thing? Because I kind of felt at the end it was a bit like the 6-1, where you kind of felt every attack we could score, and we want 10, etc. I felt a bit like that for the last 10-15 minutes of the game, where every time they went forward,
even if we were in their third, which we barely touched in the second half, every time we lost the ball, I was like, we're going to concede, and I was thinking, I hope that 6-1 chant could have been retired if it weren't for the saves from Donnarumma.
And that's where Kusanov did do some good things. He
made some good blocks. Wasn't perfect, but he definitely got stuck in, which I can't say for about 8 or 9 of the rest of them.
And I think what we did see, and this will be useful, especially if he's playing alongside, Guardiola, Diaz, Guehi. I think we saw his pace and his physicality, and he does have what we haven't seen since Kyle Walker, and that's the ability to run down an attacker, the ability to cover fullback and centre back, by getting out there. So I think he does have a real strength on that. Hello, Ed. Welcome. We have a muted off camera, Ed, but anyway.
Nah, big up Rich, big up Jack, big up the chat. I just been listening to you guys, been doing some errands, but no, did you guys think that Pep was so concerned about keeping the ball that with the back line the way it is, that's why we've been playing the way we've been playing? Just because, why he's been having all like the 3-1-6 type of thing, trying to keep the ball, and that's why we look so open in transitions at times, because we have so many people up the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably. I mean, ultimately, we've kind of got like the same problem that we had last year, except, well, firstly, we've gone and signed a top defender to address it, and secondly, we've got some players coming back. But it seems he's trying to address it in a slightly different way. We addressed it last year just by complete possession, complete control, passing the ball around the opposition box and never losing the ball. And it was very, it was not great football to watch. But, second half of last season, we actually did better than Liverpool or Arsenal. We were I think, top points team from January. Now, that was just by boring, strangling control. I worry that we're going to go back to trying that, and that the 3-1-6 is going to become more like 4-2-4 or something, and we're just going to pass the ball around the edge of the box and never risk losing it. Hopefully, though, Guehi coming back, Kusanov finding some form, and if we get the right back sorted, then we can play a bit better, because I actually thought Newcastle was one of our better performances of the season, ironically. So
no,
I didn't.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I did not see that drop off against United. I thought we'd beat United.
But Rich, speaking on Donnarumma, is it hard for Donnarumma to gather the defense when we're playing such a high line and they're on the halfway point. I don't think they can probably hear him.
Well, but we were picking the ball out of the goal for a disallowed goal from an offside about every 5 minutes. So, I mean, he had them back enough to talk to you about. Yes, perhaps at a noisy away game when they're on the halfway line, it's hard to shout and organise. But I did feel he could have just been a bit more, a bit harder and a bit more vocal. I felt the whole team was a bit passive. We didn't have someone, we didn't have someone screaming the odds, and there's a lot of experience on there. We had, 3 of our 4 captains out on the pitch. We had Donnarumma, who's one of the most experienced, leaders in football in Europe for his age. So I just felt we lacked it. But even Pep looked a bit. He didn't look like he was in control. He didn't make.
He was slouched on his chair, wasn't he?
Yeah,
like, and I was like, oh, yeah. I can tell what's going to happen.
Yeah, the subs were made like almost like just
reaction
3 on, take proactive. 3 off. Yeah, that's the I'm just going to try something random, and that's how it felt.
No, I agree with you, and that's why I'm looking forward to seeing what Guehi offers us. Just not, is not to talk about the youth at the back line, but knowing when to go. Talking to Huznov, telling him when he should go up, and just being more coordinated back there, I think would be beneficial for us to see, and I think that's going to be the major difference for us. Even when maybe pressure is on, maybe not to dive in, right? So. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the day he coming back in the fold against Wolves because we need it.
Yeah, it's certainly. I mean, it's certainly changed the narrative in the media because, before the United game, it was City spend $1 billion. They're going to steamroll the league again because they've gone and spent 85 million. That takes their spending to this. All done under 115. The football is over. City aren't going to let anyone else ever win a game ever. I mean, it was like absolute meltdown because we signed a £20 million player, and then absolute meltdown because a player on a free transfer gets higher wages than normal in a complete shock horror. So it's gone from that to like City are back in the crisis of, and I can't help but feel it is social media, it is the modern media, it is everything else. But the fact that you can go from, in the last couple of months, we've had Arsenal are going to dominate everything to Arsenal in crisis, City the shark are on their shoulder, Arsenal are finished, to City are in crisis, to City are back, they've spent 20 billion, they're going to win everything ever again, to like City are in complete crisis, they Pep's resigning tomorrow and City won't make top 4. It's mad. Yeah, it's just madness, and I'm like, I didn't know which way to go. I just think it's unfortunate for me, and moving on from United a bit to Bodo, that one was just unfortunate to me because I thought we're screwed on that game. It's going to be it's always going to be a nightmare, and then shock horror it was. But now the real crisis talks began. Hello, Ozzy. Hope you're all right, mate.
Yeah, I do apologise for being late, Rich. I had a couple of things I had to sort out, but thanks for running things while I was a bit late. I hope everyone's well in the chat, and everyone's well on the panel.
We've got Jack and Ed here, and we've resisted. Jack and me have resisted turning it into a Coventry City chat along because we're always chatting about Coventry. So we've kind of chewed the fat a little bit on the, I guess, the topic. Is it a crisis or is it just a couple of bad games? Very bad games. I don't think anyone disputes that in any way. But we're still in all 4 comps. We've got Guehi. We've actually addressed it this time with Guehi coming in, which we obviously didn't we couldn't last year because our crisis didn't happen in a transfer window, and then we've got some players who will be coming back from injury soon. So I think it was a bit about a crisis. We talked a bit about United. There's general lethargy, lack of leadership. Well, just generally everything against United, it was just terrible. And then, I think Bodo's one you and me have a bit of a disagreement on, in that I just felt from the start Bodo was just a nightmare waiting to happen. And
all right, have you told
I just wish I'd bet on that, as I'd have bet on us drawing the game, and I just wish I'd.
I nearly did, but I used the free bet up.
I just said to Ozzy, Arctic Circle,
tell the truth,
minus whatever it was. I mean, Ozzy says it was -2 or 3 or something, and the BBC and the ESPN said it was -9. But I just said, and it was a couple of days after a derby. I just said absolute nightmare waiting to happen. It was almost inevitable, and I'm a bit disappointed I went for the draw and didn't bet on us to lose. But at least the fans got to see the Northern Lights, and I love Norway, and the Northern Lights were an amazing thing to see. So hopefully everyone kind of has forgotten about the game. They've used their refund from the players to go down the pub and have a couple of Guinness, and they're looking through their photos of the Northern Lights and a husky ride or something to actually make it better than the game was, because the game was terrible. But I kind of felt that was inevitable.
Okay, Rich. I mean, let's put your Klopp excuses aside, because it's the freezing cold. It was the pitch. It was
Pep Linda's excuses.
yeah,
that's where it came from.
Me and Rich are having quite a debate, weren't we, after the game about all the reasons we thought City lost. And listen, there's no getting away from it. Like, it was a dreadful result. It was a dreadful performance. And I think, Rich is right to kind of bring up a few things. I think, the way, I think we're forgetting this team is very much in transition at the moment. We've got a lot of new players through the door. We've got a lot of injuries. If Arsenal had the amount of injuries we had right now, they would be kind of making those type of excuses. And they're not excuses, they're just facts. We've lost both of our back centre pairing. We've had to bring in Max Lane, from Watford. Kuznos only just come back from an injury himself. Nunes wasn't there last night. Nori's playing out of position. I mean, it's just a catalogue of things that you can turn around and look at and say, yes, we still had a fantastic, first 11 that really should have been able to do the job. But, you look at Haaland. Haaland is, yes, he's always been called the robot, and he's, the Viking, that puts away all the goals, and Foden.
He's human. He's human.
Well, he's human, and that's my point, Rich, is that the players like Foden, like Haaland, are very burnt out at the moment, and we've all been saying, they need a rest. We were all saying that Marmoush should have played last night, should have started. I mean, I made the comments on Thursday. I think it's Thursday, Friday, when we did the 90-minute show with Tone and Martin, and I said, would it be a surprise if Haaland started? And everyone was like, yeah, of course it would be. He's tired, he's knackered, he needs a rest. I said, well, maybe it's an opportunity for him to bang a few goals in, because he's lacking a bit of confidence.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that decision was on Pep last night to play him. I'm sure Haaland would turn around and go, of course I want to start. But
do you think there was a bit of it? Do you think there was a bit of it? It was in Norway. I always felt Haaland shouldn't play, and then I thought, it's in Norway. He's going to be like, he's going to be like, I want to play.
The point I want to make is we get that all players want to play, no matter where it is, what the conditions are, and all that. That they just want to be out on the pitch and play. But go back to last season. This is one of the criticisms we had with Pep. is that there were times where he put out players who were clearly injured or clearly fatigued, but more injured than not, and he kept playing them. And even he admitted himself he was making that mistake. He wasn't trusting other players, or he wasn't trusting younger players.
Yeah,
and he only recently said that in the last few weeks that I need to rotate. I need to trust the other players, and he didn't do that. So that's where I think he failed. It's Bodo. I think that is the mistake that he has to own, because he's not infallible. And we've always said, we will criticise Pep when he needs to be criticised. And I'm doing that right now. He's not infallible. He has made mistakes.
And you know what? In some ways, the things that I felt made Bodo an inevitable hiccup, I might not have felt would be an inevitable hiccup if our under-19s was going there to play in the if the Champions League youth or whatever. I may not have felt quite the same, because I kind of think some of the issues around tiredness, around around the pitch, around the weather, etc., may have been a bit less of an issue for a player who wasn't bouncing back off a derby and a bit more prima donna-ish. If so maybe it would have been, maybe actually playing a couple of youth players might have actually made a difference in that game, because the difference in clearly if you're playing a game and everyone's fit and everyone's mentally equal, everything else, we are miles better than Bodo. So my excuses were not that we shouldn't be beating Bodo. It was just like I just felt months out we have to be comfortably in the top 8. We had to beat Leverkusen, because when we go to Bodo, we're going to be tired. We're going to be tired. We are going to be fatigued by the travel. We're going to be playing on a pitch which is just that little bit bouncy, a little bit quicker than we used to. It's going to be well below zero, and ultimately they don't play. Our players do not play below. They might play one game every few seasons, if that, below zero. They don't play games in that sort of weather. And it's harder. It is harder. Breathing.
Guys, do you guys think? I know it came out that we used that Leverkusen game to evaluate our.
Well, he just dropped everyone, didn't he?
Do you guys use that game wisely?
I think
that way, didn't we?
I think Leverkusen was the biggest mistake Pep has made in his 9 years at City. I thought it was an absolute,
apart from the Champions League.
Well, yeah, but even then, I understood the reasons behind that. There's been a little bit of rewriting of history in the Champions League final. Rodri, etc., and some of the other players hadn't been playing amazingly, so it wasn't. It was, and in the game we'd played against them, a couple of weeks before, was it the FA Cup semi?
And the
Reece James had absolutely destroyed us. So when he did what he did with Sterling, it was to stop Reece James, and actually, Reece James was one of their less good players in the Champions League final. And
I get the Sterling bit. It was we had Fernandinho, and when we subbed him on,
Guardiola, So it was not Guardiola, Gundogan. So I think but it was a mistake like that. It was a mad one, and so that then set us up. And looking ahead 3 months, you could see that fixture list in January is a nightmare. Was it? I can't remember what we played, 5 games in like 12 days or 14 days or something. It's a painful, it's a trip that's you can't drive it. You can't get a train. You got to fly there a couple of hours. You've got it's not a place which has luxury hotels and wonderful training facilities. It's you're flying up to the Arctic. It's it's just a bit silly. Just seeing an Arsenal fan there cracks me up, because I don't know. I've generally avoided.
sorry to interrupt you, Rich. Gooner SC, go and win a European Cup, then come back and tell us.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Point, mate. Yeah. Come back when you've actually won something under Arteta.
I've been absolutely cracking up this week because there's been this real Arsenal fan pat themselves on the back, and you know, there's all these Arsenal fans talking about the hardship of being an Arsenal fan, how challenging it is, you know, how they must be the most loyal fans in the country. I'm looking at it thinking, of the 92 clubs, aren't they the longest who've been in the Premier League? So, and they've barely been outside the top five. Everton.
Everton are the longest.
But Everton.
Well, Arsenal were, but they cheated to get in it in 1920, didn't they? I think Everton was early 50s. I'm not too sure.
Oh, it's a governor. He's got his Macron sunglasses on. I love it. I wear mine.
I'm just driving at the moment, so I might drop out. I don't know.
Sorry, 1 second. Keep talking. I just have to check something with my daughter very quickly.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate. Yeah. How's it going?
Sorry, mate. How's it, Jack? Not bad, lads. I've just been listening to you.
Oh, fair enough.
I was saying the other day, the worst thing about the Bodo thing is, I don't know if you've mentioned it, but the Norwegian league don't start till March, so they're in pre-season.
That's right. They haven't played a competitive game since the 10th of December.
So they're still getting fit.
And that was their pre-season.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
It works one or two ways. Maybe you could argue that they were more fresh, but they didn't have minutes in their legs. We were in the middle of a game every 3 or 4 days. So, it's one of them. What position would you rather be in?
Well, 2 weeks ago, we'd have rather have been in our position. I think after United, we'd have rather been in. I mean, that's the thing, innit?
Can we just look at the position, the game before that, though? We played Newcastle. And we absolutely dominated that game.
Yeah, we were. I thought we were fantastic.
One of the best. It was one of the best results we've had in such a long time. One of the best performances we've had in such a long time. And then it was a complete shocker at United. No one was denying that. No one was denying it was a shit show. Yeah. It was. And then to go from that to Bodo, and then again just be spanked. I'm going to be honest. You know, it hurts a lot.
Roasted.
Yeah, of course. You know, but I think we have to take things into perspective. You know, the injuries we've got, players that have played and not had a rest.
Kind of.
I think the worst two games we could lose, it'd be them two, wouldn't it? We just get on with it. We just got to get through it. Do you know what I mean?
I think the worst game was definitely the United game.
It's definitely United.
Because it was against,
of course. You know, I mean, let's be honest, any game in the Champions League, any team could turn up and you know, you have, I mean, 2 quick goals. For me, I'm being honest now, after those 2 goals, for me, it was over. Because I sat back, I was pissed off and angry, but at the same time, I just kind of accepted it because it just felt inevitable. I don't know about anybody else, but that's how it felt. What I was watching was just like, I don't know what I'm watching here, but there's no coming back. There just didn't seem a way back. And I'm sure I know some people felt that, you know, with the changes at half time and everything like that, there could be a chance. But I just didn't see that, if I'm honest. It just felt inevitable that we were going to lose this game.
I committed an eternal sin. I turned the game off because I was like, there's no way after such a double sucker punch in that specific situation we were ever going to come back from that. I've had just 3-0 down in games and not turned off, but that was just, I could just sense it. It was over.
Yeah. Same. As soon as Doku got his hands on that ball, I thought we were in here, and it trickled the first player. I just knew something was going on.
Yeah, Governor, you're breaking in and out, mate. I'm afraid.
I can't understand these professional players can't get past the first man on dead balls. It does my head in, that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the big things for me is one of the horror moments was Rodri. Yeah, those 2 yellow cards within the space of a minute. I mean, that was just dreadful, to be honest. To come from our captain to one of the best players on the pitch, you know, from the Ballon d'Or winner.
It's petulance. It's not the first time we've been sent off like that.
No, but for me, it was a little bit unforgivable, really, because even though I appreciate, like, we've all said when he's come back, he's had moments of brilliance, but to me, he's still nowhere near his best. And it just seemed that game was going by. You know, he was just not able to keep pace. He was letting players go past him, and I was just thinking, that's not the Rodri we all know. That's not all the Rodri we've come to love and adore.
He's getting no help, was he?
He was getting no help. I admit that, but at the same time, he's a seasoned professional, and to make that mistake twice within less than a minute, basically, I just thought was not good. And to me, it shows that I think he still needs time to come back. I don't think
absolutely
keep playing game after game. Yeah. We really are missing Nico G. We are
need Nico back in the squad.
I'm sure most of us wouldn't have said that at the beginning of the season. Most of us would have been like, no, as soon as Roger comes back, you know, he'll be back. He'll be, you know, in the team, and Nico G will probably come off the bench and help. But for me, actually, right now, I think where we need to go for the rest of the season, we need Nico G back in that role, because for me, he's able to do that role better at the moment than Rodri. And that's no slight on Rodri. It's just because he's not at his full best right now. Go on, Rich.
You need both. You know, if you think about it, you know, Rodri can play a game, and then Nico G play a game. And then if Rodri was playing, you know, once every week and a half, getting himself back and playing the easier games, I don't think we'd be seeing that problem. I mean, I don't think in a million years Pep was thinking, I want to play Rodri twice in 3 days and he's going to need to play the full 90 minutes. Well, if he doesn't get himself sent off, I don't think they'd have thought that in a million years. But unfortunately, I mean, you know, fortunately in one way, Nico G's injury came when Rodri was back, because if it had happened without Rodri, God knows what we'd be doing. I mean, we'd all be screaming about Nick O'Reilly, because we'd probably had to play in there and we'd be blaming him. But we need Nico back, because Rodri's coming back from 12, 18 months injured. He needs time to get up to speed. He needs time to get to full fitness. He needs time for his body to work. He needs time for his mind to get back and to get confident. And at the moment, he hasn't got that. It's like play. And, you know, I don't think that can be doing him any good. You know, possibly only in the physical fitness sense.
I don't want to do it, but would the situation we're in, would you play them both together?
But I've always said I'd quite like to. I mean, I always said after the Newcastle defeat in the league, I said there's games like that where we could do with them playing together, because the game we get out muscled in midfield, I don't think, you know, Foden and especially Reinders are that physical. So when you're up against the midfield, which is dominant,
midfield, extra
the two of them together, because for me, Gonzalez is probably an 8, not a 6, really. I mean, he's played well as a 6, but he's a bit more direct. He's a bit more, you know, he likes to carry the ball a little bit more. So I think you could easily play them together.
I think the thing you've got at the moment, though, Rich, is that until Rodri is a lot more match ready, I don't think playing them both together is going to be helpful right now. And I think one of the other criticisms I have from that game is someone I've mentioned for quite a while, who lately has performed, but the last 2 games he's been awful, especially against Bodo, was Reinders. I thought Reinders was nowhere. He was actually really bad, really one of the worst performances I've seen from him.
He came in with a bit better form, and
he did, and then he went back to that, just letting the game completely go past him. He was being completely out-muscled, and it's something that is really starting to worry me a little bit more, because he was just starting to show, as you said, you know, that quality form that we know he's got because we've seen it.
Right. Yeah.
But this is one of the reasons I think we're looking to try and sign Anderson in the summer. Because we need that physical dominance, because that's where it's starting to change in the midfield rather than the players we've had in the past. We do need someone who is going to be more on the ball, able to make, make the changes that I think are going to help out that midfield really with someone like him coming in. And I know he's been linked to the
prime example, Ozzy. Prime example in the derby. I don't want Bernardo Silva getting a yellow card for pulling someone back. I want him to get a yellow card for going through someone, and that's what we were short of at the derby.
That's a great point.
Do you know what I mean?
A lack of enthusiasm, a lack of bit of shithousery. I'll tell you what we missed: a Nigel de Jong, a Fernandinho, someone to just crunch into them, wind them up a bit, knock them off the stride.
Yeah. No, you make a valuable point, and I think that's one of the things that with Bernardo Silva, he's able to do that. But the problem with Bernardo Silva is that he can't play 3 games in a week. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't got the legs anymore. And Pep is having to rely on him more and more. Like he wasn't able to be selected that game because he wasn't able to. And then he'll come back more likely at the weekend because we need him to, but we can't keep on relying on him because he's starting to get to that point now where he can't do as many games as he once did. But Pep is having to keep on relying on him because he can't rely on Roger right now because he's just not fit enough. Reinders cannot do that at all because he's not showing it anywhere near. Foden, that's not his game. Cherky is not his game. And Nico G, I don't think it's just quite got that in his locker quite yet. He's got some really good attributes in it, but he just hasn't got that part of the game yet. And I'm not saying you can't get it because Roger didn't have that when he first came in. He learned a lot of that from Fernandinho.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
he can still put his foot in though, can't he, Nico?
He can, and he does at times. But I think just that kind of that way of shithousery, as you put it, Jack, and that just way of kind of winding other players up a little bit in a cheeky way of kind of going, wasn't me. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we do need going forward. And that's one of the reasons I do think we are looking at Anderson because he's able to do that.
I think you mentioned it before. I think you or Rich mentioned it about the little things that mounted up into the way the game went. And another one was like Haaland up front. You're playing against that little rat. Like the week before, he's having a brawl with Van Hecker. And then he comes to this game and don't put a fucking glove on him.
Yeah, like I know that he's not.
My head in.
Yeah, I agree because when you've not seen the ball, the least you can do is get into the brain, get into the head of your opposing defenders, smash into
them.
Get
into them. Yeah.
And it's a derby after all. You need to see a bit more, smash into someone. It's supposed to be a physical game full of blood and thunder, and it was too passive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we definitely saw that from United, but we didn't see that from us at all, and that was a big problem. I mean, sometimes I don't think we have in the last few derbies that I can remember. I don't think we've seen that really from either team. We've always felt because Roy Keane has always made that comment after the game. He's always gone, "Oh, they're shaking hands. They're all best mates. I want to see that blood and thunder from United." So it's not just us. United players have done it in the past and recent past as well. So it's not. I don't think you have to be completely that kind of way to win a game in a derby. I'm not saying it doesn't help at times, but it definitely would have helped in that game because
it makes a difference when the other teams
the way United were playing. They were playing really well, counter football, and really kind of making the game difficult for the City players.
Yeah, and sometimes sometimes it's a bit like the fighters in ice hockey. Sometimes you've just got to change the momentum of the game. And if you can't do it by a piece of brilliance and getting a goal, you can do it by getting your fans up. You can do it by making the other team think twice about something. And had City, we needed Neil Pointon. I think, him doing, what he once did in a derby, better than Nigel de Jong's in the World Cup final. We needed that. We needed something to get the City fans cheering, to get the United fans, you know, off their bloody, because it was sickening to see them about as happy as I've seen them in about 15 seasons. We needed something to change that game, and we did lack. We just lacked. We lacked fight. We lacked someone screaming at other players to go. We lacked someone throwing themselves into a challenge, throwing themselves into a ball, really just going for it. And that was sad. And it is a bit of a thing about modern derbies, because I don't know how many derbies I've watched in the last 10 years where, usually it suits us because we're the better team and we're winning, but you're looking at it and you're thinking, and Roy Keane's on telly always, moaning about the fact that United have just lost 2-0 and they haven't even tried. They haven't even got a yellow card. You need a bit. You do need. Your derbies need that. They need edge.
Yeah.
Back in the day, Governor, there'd be like by today's standards, about 5 red card challenges in the first 10 minutes of a derby, because both sides wanted to show we're going to beat you off the park today. And now there was none of that from us.
Yeah.
None of
it.
But
you used to always wait for the first tackle, didn't you, in a game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You used to wait for it. Who's going to do it first? But can I have a question? Why do you think he's changed the system? That's what's done me.
It's the play. It's the injuries. I think I think we're just, at the moment, he's just trying to get 11 players on the park and then figure out what's the least damaging way we can play with those players on the park.
Yeah, but the possession-based football, it's no good for Haaland. He's just stood there like a statue. The ball, we've also have box crashes, Cherky and Reinders, and it's not happening. We're
saying that Jack and I were chatting about this before the rest of you came on. We're saying that basically we've gone out of form up front, but it's because at the minute with those 2 kids playing at centre back and with the way the defence has gone, especially against United, all our players are terrified if they lose the ball, we concede a goal. And so you can see that, a couple of weeks ago, Cherky looked so confident and he was trying things and they were kind of working. And he looks less confident. And when he tries things, they're not quite working. And so everyone goes off. But I think it's just that lack of confidence that when you lose the ball, you're not going to concede. And it just goes around the whole team. And then the ball doesn't get to Haaland because no one's producing the good balls. He starts to get like, well, why would I bother running if every single time the pass is going to go to the wrong player or the pass is going to go off? And we've just got to hope that Guehi coming in with Kuznov, they've both got pace. They're both, Guehi particularly is a very good, experienced defender. I'll admit I was wrong. I didn't think Guehi would come near City to be Guardiola's backup, but we got him, and that for City, that's fantastic because he's everything we want: a top class defender. He hasn't really got any weaknesses in the game. He's a very all-round player in terms of pace in the air, possession, on ball, off. He's a very balanced player. So him and Kuznov need to hit it off quickly. He should be back quite soon. Once we're stable there, the rest of the team will start playing well again because suddenly they're going to think when we lose the ball, we're fine. We've got, the defense is going to sort it out.
But you don't think it's because of Rodri? Because it seems like we changed the system when Rodri came back.
Well, I think it's about everything, isn't it? It probably is partly Rodri. It's partly having to play Elaine and Kuznov at centre back. I'd still like to see Kuznov playing right back. I really would like to see him have a season or 2 right back before he really becomes a centre back for us.
He'll get a kick then with Guehi coming in.
Yeah, I also think though we just to pick you up on that point though, Rich. Let's not forget how well Nunes has been though in that right back position because he's been one of the best right backs in the Premier League for most of the season. Like the flaws he was making last season have all but gone. And I think he's actually one of the most improved right backs in the entire league right now.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it showed that we were missing him because he's built up a brilliant partnership, you know, with Haaland, because he's whipped in some fantastic balls that Haaland's got on the end of. You know, so for me, I don't want to completely just say let's get Kuznov out on the being on the right back, because I think we're going to need him at centre back for a bit longer. You know, but I think you're right, Rich, when it comes to having Guehi there. He's a commanding presence. He was captain for Crystal Palace. You know, he's been captain for the under-21s, I think, as well, at some points, you know, for England. Yeah. So he's a natural leader. And he's go on, Rich.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I guess I've said this before and probably banged out a bit a lot, but I've always felt about City, we're at our absolute best when we had 3 top defenders. And by that, I mean out, first and foremost defenders playing, and then a fullback who's very attacking. So for me, when we had Walker and Cancelo at their best, Walker slotted in as a right centre back almost in a back 3 when Cancelo's up doing his stuff. And then we had 3 world-class defenders playing as a defence. And for me, what Kuznov offers, especially if we're playing Ait-Nouri or, Nico at left back, what Kuznov offers, and even more so with Guehi, who's, even better defender in a back 3 than a back 4, is when we're in attack, imagine Guehi, Diaz, Kuznov. That's a fantastic defense to have. With Guardiola out for the next 6 months, that's a defense that it's got pace, it's got some physicality, it's got Diaz organising, it's got 2 very quick, able defenders either side.
I wasn't in, sorry, Rich, I heard you talk and I just got to slap you back down now in a tactical way.
Which, you always do, and then I get proved right, Martin, so please go ahead.
No, because you're so right. Everyone's crying out on this transitional football, yeah? And then everyone goes, put Hushin off the right back. Well, no, you can't do it.
No, I'm crying out for good football, Martin. I'm not crying out for...
Well, you can't do it. Because, hang on, what is the transitional football is inverting the wingers. And then your wing backs become your wingers.
Yeah, well,
Kuznov could not get up the wing and start. Then you're going back to just playing possession football.
No, I think you can. I think we can play a different dynamic of possession football. But I think first and foremost, you need a defense that can defend. And whichever way.
Rich, people are begging for transitional football. The transitional football is when the wing is inverted in. So whether it's Doku or it's Semenyo or whoever, they come inside.
I'm not begging for that. I'm begging for Semenyo and Doku wide.
But that's what then determines the fullbacks.
Yeah.
But if you're going to revert the wingers, no, that's fine then. But then you're going to have to play quick possession unless then it won't be transitional.
Yeah, I'm fine. I want us to play quick possession football. I don't want us to sit around.
Oh, right. I'm just disputing this. Let's do transitional, and people don't realise the transitional work with the fullbacks who've got on at fullback. Because they become your wide man.
Yeah, but first,
you've inverted your wingers inside.
I'm old-fashioned, right? First and foremost, we need our defence to defend. First and foremost, we need to provide a strong platform for the rest of the team to be confident. Because as soon as our defence looks leaky, the attack loses confidence, and people start misplacing passes and playing less well because there's no confidence in the team. So what I would like to see, and that's why I would like to see Kuznov right back. I would like to see, obviously Diaz come back fit and play with Guehi, and then O'Reilly and Ait-Nouri, they can go up, they can do their thing, they can go wide and let whoever's on the left wing, go anywhere they want on the pitch. But I want to see us when it turns around and when we're defending, we've got 3 players there with the pace of physicality in the nous to shut down the attack and go back on the front foot. Whereas at the moment, we haven't got that. And until we've got that platform, I don't, and we've shown signs of it this season of actually defending quite well. And then, but it's only lasted a month or 2. We've got to have that platform back because no matter what we do on the rest of the pitch, if we're just letting goals every time someone breaks, no one on the team's going to be confident. No one's going to have their, you know, Cherky, etc. will continue to be out of form because they're going to be just, you know, pooing their pants every time they try anything clever.
Yeah, everyone's, I get it, everyone's nervous. Everyone's this, that, and the other. I mean, we need to see who's fit on Saturday. We need to see who's fit. When we know who's fit, then you can make a decision on how you want to play. Because if Nico G's still out, well, you're going to have to play Rodra. You've no choice at that point. It will determine who's fit and who's not come the weekend. And we'll have to see what happens. That's going to be the only thing which we'll find out tomorrow in the press conference. Who's fit, who's not, who's trained.
Do you think like
Doku got injured training on Tuesday night, Monday night, whenever it was.
Yeah. Given it works against Newcastle, do you think he might not? Do you think he'd risk O'Reilly against Wolves?
I don't know, because Newcastle's 2 weeks away. I mean, so the Newcastle game in return, are you just meaning what he did against?
No, I mean, we didn't play Rodri or Gonzalez against Newcastle.
No, he could do that.
Yeah,
he could do that.
I must admit, I'd be tempted because
and then you play Nori at left wing back.
Yeah, I'd be tempted purely because I'm really worried if we, Rodri 3 times in 7 days.
I'm going to jump now anyway. No. I mean, I am even going back in the hospital. I'll just say this very, very quickly. It will all determine if Núñez is fit. If Núñez is not fit again, you're not going to like this. People are going to have a meltdown. He's going to play Rico there. Whether you like that or not. Yeah. It'll be Rico or someone going.
No other choice.
We'll just have to endure it.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have any other options. I mean, that's plain and simple. We don't have any other options.
No, and that's the thing, isn't it? The back line is kind of the big problem right now.
Well, the other option he has got is if he would trust the lanes play alongside Guehi and play Cousinov right back.
I know, but the last 2 games
he could play Elaine and Guehi and Cousinov right back. And I must admit, I'd have been quite,
Why Elaine and not Ake?
I'd be quite. I think Ake needs a. I think Ake looks to me like he's
on one leg.
He's playing on needles and Valium, and he's holding his leg. We're gonna finish him. His career's over if we keep playing him.
Definitely.
The thing is,
I said save him for emergencies, but this could be an emergency. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the thing is though, with Max Elaine, I think he's had 2 shocking games. I mean, we're all lambasting how brilliant he was when he came in, but I just think after those 2 bad games, I don't think you can start him against Wolves. I think you do need to sit him on the bench.
Do you not think that there's a significant difference for Elaine playing between Guehi and Cousinov right back, Guehi in the team? There's a difference between that and playing between, effectively between Cousinov and Rico Lewis at Old Trafford. To me, Rico Lewis, who, maybe against Wolves it's a different matter because they aren't as good as United and it's home not away. But to me, the Cousinov would solidify the right back position, which changes the whole defensive dynamic to go with. I think O'Reilly's pace instead of an injured Ake changes it at left back potentially if you don't play him in midfield, which might happen. And then Elaine, he's alongside Guehi. Guehi's a leader. Guehi's a top defender. He can provide him a guidance. Cousinov can barely speak English, so and he's a kid.
Actually, his English has improved a lot. Actually,
it's incredibly. He didn't speak a word when he came. But what I mean is, you can't expect Cousinov to lead a 20-year-old defender when he doesn't speak the language well.
I don't know if anybody else has watched the video that came out from City today with Mark Guehi on his first day. But there was a conversation he was having, and I didn't completely catch it fully because I was in the middle of something else. But it sounded like, and I could be wrong, but if someone knows, it sounded like Mark Guehi speaks French because he was talking about some of the players. He was talking about like the language, the French language, and he was checking on what players spoke French. So I don't know if actually he does speak some French, which would be quite helpful right now because I know Kuznov does understand French.
He probably does because it wasn't. I thought he was born in the Côte d'Ivoire, so his parents are French speakers. He's from a French-speaking. I thought he was actually born there and moved as a kid to the UK. So I think he probably speaks fluent French because I think he's from a French-speaking background, and I think both his parents are French-speaking.
Sorry, Rich. In that video, Ozzy, Diaz did ask him, "How do you say your name?" And he said, "Is it?" Yeah, and he just said it normal, Guehi. He didn't say it any other way.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So yeah, I'm not sure, but it sounds of it. I think if Rich is right, then I think there's a possibility. Yeah, thanks for coming on, mate. Really appreciate you coming on, Jack.
Cheers, Jack.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He does. He's a fluent French speaker. Yeah, his original language is French. He's yeah.
Well, that is good news because I think if I think for me at the moment, I would rather have the partnership of Guehi and Kuznov as the back two. Hopefully Nunes is fit because I think he starts over Rico, and then for me, I think you're going to have to consider playing Aït-Nouri because even though O'Reilly has been good in that position since he's taken over from Aït-Nouri, really, I just think still he needs to have a bit of a rest because even when he came on, I don't think he looks quite ready. And I think right now you just need fit players on the pitch. I think you just need to go with players that are able to kind of manage the game rather than just putting players on and making more mistakes of players that are just not either mentally or physically quite ready to play. Pep's just going to have to make that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, one thing I'm interested in O'Reilly, especially after his performance at St James's, is whether he's an option for 8. He's an option to play in the centre of midfield and give physicality. Because one thing I absolutely love, it's one of my favourite moments of this season actually, was he comes into midfield away at Newcastle, playing a role that basically in the last few years we haven't trusted anyone but cover maybe a couple of times, but it's been Rodri or Gonzalez. And he came in, and what I loved was he was getting stuck. Joe Linton's one of the biggest bullies in the Prem, and Nick O'Reilly was going face to face with him, and Nick O'Reilly was trying to bully Joe Linton. And actually at the moment it's kind of what we need. So maybe is that an option for to take a bit of creativity out, but given the form, maybe it doesn't matter so much. And you're going to have to potentially play one of I mean, maybe it's not an issue because maybe Bernardo's back, but is that something to consider? Putting his legs into midfield, and it means that either Foden, you're going to drop 2 of Foden, Cherky, Reinders probably, and go with a bit more. It's probably going to be Bernardo and Semenyo on the wings, maybe, but just go with a bit more physicality in the middle.
Yeah.
I think the thing for me is right now is that I think Foden is one of the players that needs to kind of be dropped and had a rest, as well as Haaland for me.
Yeah.
I think come the weekend with the game with Wolves, I think you need to have Marmoush starting. I really think Haaland just needs to have some time out because he doesn't seem like he's quite there with it at the moment. And I think the midfield I think it will be Bernardo in the midfield. I think you probably will see Semenyo out on the right. I think if Doku is fit, I think he'll start Doku. And then the midfield is the tricky one because it depends who's fit and available. Because I think if Nico G isn't fit and available, then I think you're going to have to play Rodri. And then I'd want to see Rodri, Bernardo, and then I think you're going to have to put Cherky because you need that creativity. You need someone who's going to do something with the ball and be able to make those passes to the likes of Marmouche and Semenyo.
I think that we've not spoken. I mean, what got my goal was when he played Haaland for 45 minutes against Exeter. That was doing my head in. And you're saying Haaland needs a rest. He should never have played. He could have been on the bench, but he shouldn't have been playing 45 minutes.
No, I agree with you. I think that was a big mistake.
Massive mistake. But, you know, the whole idea is the same thing. Get the result in the first half and take them off. But it didn't happen. You know, everyone else scored except him. But anyway, done now. We move on.
Yeah, it is. It's done, and we have to move on. We have to go with the players we've got, and we have to go with the players that are on the bench as well to hopefully try and make a difference. But it is on Pep to manage this a lot better than he has over the last couple of games.
Yeah.
You know, meeting on players completely. It's also about the way Pep has managed the last few games. And made the mistakes of not giving certain players a rest, and he's going to have to rely on certain, possibly more of the academy kids if he has to, with certain upcoming games.
Yeah, the next FA Cup game, we need to see McAdoo. We need to see McAdoo out there.
Yes,
that's what I mean.
You know, I think even having McAdoo on the bench for some of these games is needed too. In all honesty,
that's right.
The winger,
Ed, my argument has been with Martin all the time. You've got these players on the bench, they're young and fit, and he won't play them, he's stubborn. And Martin says they're not good enough. They're on the bench, mate. They're fit. You've got to use them. I was going on about Arsenal running players into the ground. We're doing it. We've got to use the bench. I don't care. You're not playing a full game.
I can understand the hesitancy in midfield, but when you have literally no wingers going away to Bodo, I don't understand why you wouldn't bring a youngster with you to throw out there in that type of situation.
Yeah, and obviously the argument would be, because I'm just going to put it out there because you have to, is that obviously you're putting a lot of pressure on young kids, because they are kids at the end of the day. You know, they're 18, 19, but they're still kids, let's be fair. It's big games, you know, still Champions League. Yes, I appreciate it's Bodo, but, you know, if they'd have been on the end of that, you know, result, how does that affect their confidence going forward?
Yeah, but Aussie at the same time. Yeah, at the same time, they're going to be firing. They're going to be up for it, and plus they're in the shop window as well at the same time, because they know some of these players aren't going to play for City. You know, the pathway isn't there for them. But if they get a game, they're still in the shop window at the same time. You know, they're young. Yeah. You know, they're firing. They want to go.
Yeah, I agree with you, Governor. I have to make the argument. I have to put it out there because I don't want it to be all one-sided, you know. So I agree with you. I think you're right. I think if they're on the bench, then you've got to use them. You haven't got to use all of them, you know, but you've definitely got to use at least one of them, whichever one you think is ready to go out on that pitch and make some sort of contribution.
You're plugging a gap. That's all.
Yeah, and we know some of these kids have got talent because we only have to look at the players that have come from the academy and now in the team, you know, the likes of O'Reilly, the likes of Foden, you know, the likes of, I know this is going to, don't shoot me all at once, but Rico Lewis, because at one time, Rico Lewis, when he first came in, he was brilliant and he did a fantastic job. Let's not forget what he did when he first started. I know at the moment, I agree that he's not at his best and maybe it's best he does move on, but we have to remember he's still a talented player. You know, he still could go off somewhere else and still do a fantastic job for another club. So he's not completely shit. He's just maybe he's not the City levels at these moments.
Yeah.
There are
Can I ask
some
a question to the panel? I'll ask a question to the panel. What would you say the average time for a professional player? What is the longevity of a professional player? What would you say?
Depends on position. I mean, I think in part, in that I think, you know, there's some positions where you can probably play till 30, you know, beyond 35 and still be very good. There are other positions where you don't see that many.
Keeper's different in a way.
Well, I think
keeper's different. Would you say? Would you say 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you'd expect 20, you know, 20 to 35 on average. Some will finish earlier, some will go later, some might be in at 17, but 15 years.
So don't you think Foden's at that time now?
Well, he's 10 years, you know, he's 10 years into his career.
10 years. Yeah. So do you think he's like, I know he still looks young, but do you think this is the pinnacle, like where he starts declining, or because I'm saying average 10 years for a player?
I think we Foden,
do you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't think it is.
Go on, Rich, because you haven't got a lot of time. So
I was going to say, for me, there's two kind of players. There's the Wayne Rooney, Sergio Aguero type players who are muscly, they're solid, they're big. I think they have quite a finite window. So I think that, you know, Rooney started playing at 17. I think he was finished by his late 20s because of where he's playing. But if you have let's say the Ryan Giggs type, and I think Foden physically is probably more in that camp, I think they can play 15, 20 years because they're light, they're lean, and they're, you know, I think designed for, you know, designed to be able to play a lot longer. So for me, I think Foden's probably halfway through his career, in all honesty. You know,
halfway.
I think physically, yeah, I think he's you know, he's going to be out physically play for another decade. But I think there's some confidence things with Foden. You know, I think there's probably some mental things with Foden, and I think, you know, anyone who's overplayed and they get a bit out of form might need a couple of weeks to come back. And I think him and Haaland both look to me like they need a couple of days in Portugal. I mean, maybe in Haaland's case, he's had a couple of days because I'm sure him playing golf the other day, and I reckon maybe his golf is affecting his football. But I don't think Foden's, you know, physically finished in any way. If that answers anyway, yeah. I have to come up, say good night or good morning, everyone. You know, my prediction for Saturday: 2-0 City. Getting slowly back into the grind, and hopefully, you know, watching Guehi, I think is what we're all looking forward to, and seeing that defence starting to sort itself out.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thanks, Rich, for covering earlier on.
Worries.
Rich.
Catch you soon.
Take care.
Big up, Rich.
Right.
Big up, Rich.
See you, Rich.
Hey, Spike. It's good to see you, mate. Just before you come in, I'll try and answer the customer's question. Sorry. I think, yeah, it does depend on the starting age. I think it also depends on the position. I agree with Rich. I think, you know, Foden's got a long career still ahead of him. I think one of the misconceptions with Foden is a lot of people think he should be more of a leader on the pitch. Now, my slight argument against that is that he's never really come across as that kind of leader type. You know, he's always been that kind of player like David Silva, who wasn't really a traditional leader, but he just led on the pitches in the way he played. So I don't think he has to be a future captain, you know, as in captain completely of the squad. But he definitely needs to show leadership on the pitches the way he plays. But yeah, I mean, you look at centre-backs, most centre-backs, you know, it's from 25 upwards and they can go to like 35, some older, you know.
Same with the keeper.
Some of the keepers, a lot of keepers, you know, don't start off to their peak until they're coming into their 30s, you know. So, and then they go on to in their 40s. So it really does depend on the position, when they start, and the player themselves. You know, we look at players like Cristiano Ronaldo, who is he's still playing, and he's what, 40?
Yeah.
What something now? You know what I mean? And
41, I think.
Yeah, 41.
I think with Ozzy, I think with Foden as well, because he plays so much, he don't get a lot of injuries, does he? If you think about it, that's why he's playing a lot.
I think he also has a long career ahead of him, because the guy Foden relies more on the brain than on the physical side of the game. So players like that tend to be able to extend their career far beyond the ones that rely on physicality.
Yeah, I was saying 10, 15 years. I was saying 15 years at the most, like depending on the position. But yeah, I just thought I'd put it out there.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
You know,
Spartacus, you've come to the game late, mate, but I don't know how much you've watched so far. Is there anything you want to kind of talk about that we've?
I'd just like to say a couple of things about that game, the Champions League first. And I've seen a lot of people just go apeshit on that game and just completely flip and be like Pep out and everything under the sun. But realistically, if you go back and actually analyze the game, we lost that game because of individual mistakes, and we had a lot of chances to win that as well. Haaland could have had a brace. Alain and Husanov both should have scored. Probably more Husanov than Alain. But they didn't. And then you go down the other end. Donnarumma does a mess for the first goal. Husanov does a mess for the first goal. Alain does a mess for the first goal. Alain messes up for the second one. Rodri messes up for the third one, and then gets himself sent off. Like, Pep can't do much about those things because he literally has no one else to play in those positions. So crashing down on him on that game, I think that's a little bit too much.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, let's get into a bit about Pep, because obviously you're right, Spartacus, that there's been a lot of criticism on Pep, and I've criticised him just before, in saying that, when he does make mistakes, we do call him out, especially on this channel. But there has been a lot of calls, and for me, we've lost 2 games. Yes, we drew 3 before that, but we were on quite a good run. It was what, 13 games unbeaten. The Newcastle game was one of the best performances of the season. So I think like you said, we have to take things into perspective. We look at the injuries, we look at the bench, we look at the players that really need a rest. Pep can only do so much with what he's got. And I think the thing we still forget is that Pep is still the best manager on the planet right now, because every other team in the world would take Pep in a heartbeat. If he left tomorrow, every other team would be in for him, because they know how brilliant he is. Liverpool, United, Chelsea, Arsenal even would all take Pep in a heartbeat, and they would, because they know the brilliance of the man. They know what he's won for us.
And I also think that if
the question would be, honestly now, out of the panel and on the chat as well. I know I've kept up the chat, and I apologise for that, but it's really difficult to host and keep up with the chat. I'm not as good as Martin, so I do apologise. But who realistically comes in right now and replaces Pep and does a better job? Name me a manager.
And this is where I struggle, because I think there are managers out there that are pretty close to Pep, but those managers are not actually gettable. You're talking about the Hansi Flicks at Barca. You're talking about the Julian Nagelsmanns at the Germany job. You're talking about Luis Enrique at PSG. And each one of them, for a reason or another, they're not coming to City. Flick ain't leaving Barca. Enrique is not getting reunited with Donnarumma. Nagelsmann is not leaving Germany with a World Cup in 6 months. Like, we can't get those managers. And then if you're going to Alonso, to Maresca, it's just as much of it's just a shot in the dark, isn't it? At the end of the day,
I think they would have. I think they would have already lined someone up. I reckon the club, but obviously Pep will run his contract out, and then we'll go from there. But You know, I don't think he'll sign another one myself, personally. But we'll just have to see, you know. I'll put it out here now. When Pep leaves, right? I've always said myself, I think Pep will get the England job. Tuchel's only got an 18-month contract after the World Cup. I think Pep will get the England job. I'd love him to get the England job, and I think every Englishman would love him to get the England job.
Well, I'm Brazilian, so I don't want that. I'm Brazilian, so I don't want that.
I'm not surprised if you say that. I'm going to be honest, Governor, I don't want that because I have to say I'm club before country. Sorry, but I am. I do feel, for me, I think if Pep can get back to galvanising this team, getting all the players fit, and having the rest of the season, and doing well. Now, we could not win the league. I'm putting that out there. You know, I still believe we still can, but there is a chance that Arsenal pip it. And if they do, fair enough to them. But we're still in the FA Cup, we're still in the Carabao Cup, and we're still in the Champions League.
In everything.
We could still win something this season or win a couple of things. Who knows? But going into next season, I want to see what Pep can do. You know, I want to see what he can do with the players we've just brought in January, because they're exciting players, Guehi and Semenyo. And then obviously in the summer, because we know they're looking at doing business in the summer with the players that are leaving and the Andersons that are being linked. I want to see what he can do next season. Do you know what I mean? And I feel if he gets this team into anywhere close to the treble squad, I could see him signing another extension, in honesty. And I'd love to see that. Because I think for me, if he wants to stay for another decade and he continues at the level or anywhere close to the levels that he's been at, he's still the best manager in the world. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Who realistically is going to replace him? Because he just is the best.
And a lot of the movement from the club has been geared to make Pep happy. So we're getting Semenyo because Pep loves Semenyo. We're getting Guehi because Pep loves Guehi. We got Donnarumma because Pep wanted Donnarumma. We got Gianni Reinders because he wanted Gianni Reinders. Cherokee, he wanted him. You go back into the summer, I think the only guy that actually, I don't think any of the January things we got were actually Pep's choice, but the rest, like, we're trying to make Pep happy. And I don't think the club would be getting as many players for him if they thought that he was gone in 12 months' time.
Yeah. The way I see it is I think he's setting up a side because I think he wants to win silverware before he does, if he does ever go. I don't want him to go personally, but I think he'd want silverware before he does go anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And you might be right, Ozzy.
That's fair, Governor.
You might be right, Ozzy. You know, he might sign an extension, so he's not just building a side just to get silverware for one last time.
No, but even if he does, it's he goes out on a high. You don't ever want to see him go out on a low period. Do you know what I mean? Especially for me after 2 losses. Yes, they were bad, but like I said, keeping in perspective, if we were to lose at Wolves at the weekend, I would have some big questions, especially if players go missing on the pitch and there is the effort, the intensity, and just, you know, effort. If we lose because Wolves are the better team on the day, then fair enough. You know, I can't see it because they are one of the worst teams in the league.
They're playing well, though.
They are currently, and that's what I'm saying. But, you know, for me, yeah, I think you have to still give Pep time, and he deserves it more than anything else for what he's done.
Yeah, and I also think that the board will do. I think the board will do it because, once again, like, the guy is getting what he wants right now. He wanted to keep Savio. Piana was desperate to get Savio out. He kept Savio, and Savio's still playing. He wanted Luis to go out. He's not in the squad. They accepted a bid for Luis to go. He wanted Stones to go out, so he kind of froze him a little bit during the Club World Cup. So you look at the decisions that the club is making, it's all very geared towards Pep staying. So I struggle to see him going. I really do.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do see him. I don't see him going. And I think, you know, it's that old expression, you don't realise what you've lost until it's gone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that will happen with a lot of fans who are asking him to go now. It's like when he does go, I think that's where you're going to be begging for him to come back, in all honesty. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. You may not like it, you may not agree with it. That's fair enough. You know, everyone's entitled to their opinion.
All right, Ozzy, I've got to bounce, mate. I've got to go.
Right, we're wrapping up shortly anyway.
All right.
So
it's a long weekend, and I'm off for a few days, so.
Fair enough, mate. Well, you enjoy yourself, and hopefully we'll see you back on
All
the channel
good.
soon, mate.
Yeah, keep the faith, and all the best.
Yeah.
Big up, Governor.
Thanks, mate. So
See
we'll do
lads.
another. See you later, mate. We'll do another like 10-15 minutes.
Yep.
Because Sparkers, I realise you're only just coming, mate. So is there any kind of questions you want to kind of throw at me and Ed or the chat? Anything you want to particularly burning questions?
Shall we go into a little bit into the Spurs game? No, not the Spurs. Sorry, the Wolves game.
Yeah, we can do, mate.
I'm already scared of the Spurs game.
Well, they are slightly our bogey team, but yeah, we may leave that game for now. I don't want to kind of cause any more people to have issues and start thinking way too far ahead. Yeah, go on then, mate. You brought it up. What do you want to say?
I think it's a very curious game to see what we're gonna do, because I expect us to change a lot from the game on the midweek against the Bodo Glimt. But I also want to see a couple of tactical switches, such as we've been playing in this 3-1-6 formation for a while now. I want to see if Pep is gonna try to do this again, or if he's gonna switch into something else. Because we happen to have a couple of issues with that formation currently, because the goal of it is to outnumber the backline. But to do that, we leave our build-up a man down. So we have a harder time getting into those deeper phases, into those deeper places with the ball. So having that man advantage against the backline isn't really useful, because the ball doesn't get there in a good enough situation for you to take the advantage caused by it. So I want to see what Pep's going to do with that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Ed?
Ed's gone. We have to talk a little bit of shit about Kuznetsov for him to come back. We have to say that Elaine is going to start ahead of Kuznetsov. You see he's coming back in a second.
Any second you'll go, what?
In a second, what?
Any second. Who knows? It'll reappear in a minute. You're right. I think it's we did slightly talk about earlier. I think with the injuries we've currently got, I think it is difficult to really get that back line. I mean, it's Pep, so Pep can do the unexpected half the time. But I think we all expect Donnarumma to start. And the back four, I think, for me, you know, it's going to be Guehi. I think it'll be Kuznetsov pairing him at the back. And then it comes down to the left and right back. For me, I think you have to have an 8 Nori, because I just think Riley needs a rest. Ake, for me, just isn't fit enough. Pep might think otherwise. He may just want him in the back because he feels that leadership and experience. But this is my lineup anyway. I think if Nuno's is fit, I think you've got to have him start.
Yeah.
Not, I think realistically, you're probably just looking at Rico Lewis. I'm not saying I want him there, but I just think realistically, I can't see who else if Nunes isn't fit.
I don't like this option, but would you maybe think about throwing Husanov to the right back and Elaine as the right-sided centre back?
If it meant, like I said, I don't want to put too much shade on Rico Lewis, but yes, if you could say that I think you'd have a lane next to Guehi. I think that may be a bit more stable. And maybe you interchange Kuznov and Elaine if need be. I don't know how. I think Elaine has played at one of the full-back positions. I can't remember which one, in all honesty. But I think if you feel like you're struggling, then maybe move him across there if he does need better. If not, then I think you may have to just take him off and look at someone else. But it's difficult. There's no perfect solution right now. I think we're just working with what we've realistically got. The midfield, again, I think you're going to have to start, unless Nico G is fit, because I think for me, Nico G starts over Rodri right now. But if Nico G isn't fit and not available for selection, then I think you have to go with Rodri. I think you're going to have to put Bernardo Silva on the pitch because he's just stable. And he's one of the most experienced players and definitely a leader on that pitch. Foden, as I said earlier, needs a rest. So I think maybe bring in Cherky. And then I think the wings, you bring in Semenyo, Doku, hopefully fit. And I would play Mamouche up front. I think you have to put Haaland on the bench right now. He needs a rest.
Agree with that one. I don't think he's tired. I think he needs to be dropped. But he's not. I don't think he is, because he doesn't move too much. And that thing that Martin usually says, that when you keep winning, you don't get tired. That is so true. That is so true. If you keep winning and your team is performing and you're having good games, you don't get tired. Now, Haaland right now, he just doesn't look to us. He looks like, and I'm not saying that he's dropping off, that he is not caring about the club and all that jazz. I'm just saying that Haaland at times, he does have those 4 or 5 games where he just looks uninterested a season. And I think maybe we are going through that little patch of him. And hopefully if you drop him, that's going to be like the wake up sign where he just comes back to life and the next game he bags a hat trick to be like, yeah, you don't drop me.
Yeah.
But I would also change one thing. I don't like Chucky centrally because I don't think he has enough out of possession output. So I would put him on the right side, Semenyo on the left, and Kenny Reinders in the middle.
The thing is for me is I get where you're coming from, but I think luckily is you've got that forward attacking line. I think is interchangeable. Do you know what I mean? They can all swap around and play on the wing or in the midfield, because I think Semenyo could even play as a 9 if need be. So
yeah,
I think it is quite fluid. So I don't think you have to worry too much about who's definitely in each position for the game. I just think you need to have them understanding what they're going to do on the day, and then if they do need to slightly change or go in and out on the right or go through the middle, then they can do that because they're all capable players doing it. So that's one of the unique and brilliant things about our squad is that a lot of them can play in different positions.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I just think Doku would struggle a little bit playing centrally, but he has been a little bit more central nowadays. But it is a different thing going from the wide areas into the central areas and starting in those central areas, because the way that your body is oriented and how your defensive line is going to mark you down is completely different. But I get Doku can play on both wings, so if you need to, you can send Mamush into the left or into the cam, and then check your left, Semenyo up top, and then you check Doku on the right side. Yeah, you can do that. There's a lot of interchangeability in there.
Yeah. Ed, you're back, mate.
Yes. I'm back.
How much have you heard, and how much do you want to say about the starting lineup against Wolves?
I mean, for me, I would go, of course, Donnarumma. If Nunes is fit, I would go Nori, Guehi, Hilsnov, Nunes. Midfield, I'll probably go Rodri, Bernardo, Cherky, and then I would go Semenyo, Doku, Marmoush.
So virtually identical then.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. He's dropping Haaland. Who would do such thing?
I mean, I am a little.
Ed,
if Haaland does
thinking?
start, if Haaland does start, I would want to see Marmoush, Haaland, Semenyo.
Ed, obviously you were, even though you were on mute, you obviously weren't listening. We both dropped Haaland, so you're all right, man. You don't have to defend yourself too much. All right.
No, we talk about this in spaces, Ozzy. Me and Spartacus, we've talked about this in spaces. So that's why he's doing that. That's why he's doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I stay out of spaces because they're not my thing. But I know how much Martin and you and even Spartacus loves them. Yeah. More for you guys, but that's just me.
I tend to go at the tail end of it because it's usually a little bit more sensible, so I can just jump the whole.
No, he's a rage baiter.
Marcus
is a rage baiter. Don't listen to him.
I'm quite surprised you're not starting Elena.
Nah, man. I think if I had to choose between Elaine and Huzanov, I would go with Huzanov just because I think the last couple of games, Elaine has been. I mean, with any young player, right? You start. This is why we always say for young players, give them time, ease them in, because when they have to go into the firing line, when teams get a couple tapes on you, they're looking to see where they can get at you and how they can get at you. And I think a lot of teams have been targeting our back line for all that reason, right? Putting more pressure on him to make split decisions on both sides. So, I mean, that's why I want Guehi come back into the fold to help with that. And I expect to see Elaine. He won't get dropped and not coming back in. I expect him to come back into this team in the next few games, actually. So,
how much of a drop off do we think? How much of a drop off do we think we're going to see from Guehi, from Palace, if any at all?
What do you mean by drop off? Can you give context to that?
How much worse is he gonna play in the early phases of his City career compared to Palace if he's gonna play worse at all?
Do you mean like adaptation time? How long will it take him to adapt?
Yep. To get used to how we play and to understand the patterns, the passing lanes, how the opposition approach a game against us versus a game against Palace, because that whole thing is very different.
I think, for me personally, I think he is a seasoned professional. Even at 25, he's played not only for and captured Palace and done remarkably well with them and won them trophies. He also played at the top level for England. So adaptation-wise, I'm not too concerned. I think personally, I think he'll come in very similar to how Semenyo came in. I think he'll come in and stabilise the back four. And do a good job. I have a lot of faith because I just think he's such a quality player. That's why so many big clubs were in for him. Because he's got the technical skill, but I think he's also good up here as well. He's very good at adapting to different types of games. So I don't really have too much concern, if I'm honest, to adaptation time. I think he'll settle in quite quickly. Ed?
I mean, I don't really see like I said, I think it depends on how we're playing too, right? Like if we're playing I think he's used to wingbacks pushing up. I think he's used to, I think it'd be a little bit different where we play, but I think he's used to being in a back three or when you're you're left back there and you have to cover those wide spaces. I think he's used to that aspect. And then with the for the passing, I don't think Pep's going to put too much on him with the passing.
Yeah, if we're making a Husanov Guehi backline, he's going to have a lot of passing to do.
I think he's going to have a lot of passing to do, but I think Pep might try to simplify it as well. To ease him into that. So we might see a Bernardo drop deep. We might see a Rodri drop deep to give him options. But I think he should be able to handle it fairly well. I mean, we say this about a lot of players coming into there's not going to be excuses for him. You know, if he's coming in now or whenever, you knew we're in a crisis. You knew you're coming in right away, and it's going to be on him to pick it up fast. I mean, that's what he's getting paid to do. That's why we're giving him $300K a week to do. And that's
not
and when you
200.
He's not on 300K yet.
Yeah, it's 200.
That's why we gave you a sign-on bonus plus the salary to come in now, and you know the pressure is going to be on you. That's when you come. That's you're coming in January. You're coming when we're down center backs. People are going to look towards you to make an impact. I think he's ready for that pressure. So we'll have to just see.
I expect to see a very inconsistent game for the first few months, because you're right in what you said that he's used to playing with flying wingbacks, but he's also used to doing that in the back three, which is very different to doing that in the back four. So when you're in the back three and you have to protect the wide areas, you don't actually have to be that concerned about the central areas, because you have that middle centre back who's in charge of just occupying those spaces. In the back two, you have to be a lot more aware of how far you are from your partner in the six than in the back three. So I think he's gonna do well in the long term, but I think a lot of City fans are looking at Guehi to be like this Messi type player who's gonna make us win games again, not concede goals, and be this Beckenbauer-esque defender who can ball play like nobody else. And at least for the first 2 months, I expect him to be very inconsistent at that. Some games great, some games bad. Just like Mamouche, 2 very good games against Newcastle and Exeter, but then a very bad game against Man United. And I don't think this is like a dig at any of those. It's just you're coming from very different system into another very complicated system as well. So it takes a little bit of time for you to get 100% used to it. And in football, if you get your timing just a fraction of a second wrong, you're just completely out of sync with the team. So your production levels goes down massively.
I think you're right, Spotty, because in some respects, I don't agree with everything you've just said, but I think he's coming into a team that aren't at their best right now. I think there is going to be put a lot of pressure on him, being the type of player he is, being the leader he can be. So I think, it's the pressure's there. But as Ed said, like, he's coming in knowing the situation, coming in knowing what's expected of him. And I think he will adapt very quickly. That's just from what I've seen of him as a player playing for Crystal Palace in England. I think he's very adaptable, and I think he's very quick. I don't think the adaptation period will be very long, if at all. But again, I respect your opinion, mate. You could be right. I kind of hope you're not, just because I want him to say really quick, and I want him to see him come in and have a brilliant. I want him to score in his first game, because he's also very good at heading the ball in the back of the net. He's quite good at scoring those goals, and I think on set pieces is something we've been missing a lot. And he's very good at them. From corners. So
especially since Josco Guardiola got injured.
Yeah, exactly. He's such a huge miss. He really is.
Oh my god. He was a whole back.
You look at the future of that back line in a lot of respects. You think about just don't concentrate on the centre backs. For me, I think Kuznov is just the ceiling for that player is just immense.
Well, Ozzy, be careful. Be careful.
No. I think he's such a brilliant player. He's still got a lot to learn. Don't get me wrong, Ed. He's still got a lot to adapt to his game. But from what I can see of him so far, I just think he's got such fantastic pace. I think defending wise, he's one of the best defenders that I've seen. That are able to kind of go through a man and most of the time, make a really good tackle. And I know he's been a bit gung ho sometimes, but I think once he gets better at that, I think he'll just be sublime. That's just what I see right now. Things can change, play, injuries and whatever else. But right now, I just think he could be one of the best. And the same with Josco. I think Josco is just, we have to remember 23, nearly 24 now.
Class.
You know, and what he's done so far in his career has been fantastic.
It's
so you
ridiculous.
look at that future back line with Guehi as well. Like, wow. I mean, Diaz is obviously, I know he's 29, but he's still got another 5-6 years at the top level, possibly. You know, if he's injury free and carries on the way he is, because we know he's a brilliant defender.
Don't forget Victor Hayes as well.
And Victor Hayes, and I think Juma Bar, from everything I'm hearing, he's wanting to move away, which is understandable because he looks at the squad now and those positions. I think he's probably looking at it's going to be really, if not impossible,
really hard for him to get in.
City side, and that's fair enough. If he goes away and we set a buyback clause, and maybe one day he comes back and tears it up, but all power to him, and he's got to have a career and he's got to have that, whether it's at City or somewhere else. So we're very good at scooping all these young talents. Some of them make it, some of them don't. But
I'm surprised. I was surprised Crystal Palace didn't want him. I was because they didn't. I don't think they even bought a center back.
I think the problem with Palace right now is that it feels like a bit of a sinking ship with so many players wanting the exit door. It's, if they don't recruit very soon and get it right, they could find themselves very quickly at the bottom of the league, if not this season, next. Do you know what I mean? So with Glasner leaving, I think Crystal Palace are going to, exactly. They're going to have to sort that all out very quickly and very soon. Because if they don't find themselves towards the bottom of this season, I think next season, if they don't sort it out, I fear for Palace. Hopefully not, because I think they're a good team. I like them in the Premier League, but the way things are at the moment, if I was a Palace fan, I would have concerns, and understandably. So
where are they in the table right now?
I think
they're towards the bottom. I don't know.
11th, 12th.
Not sure, because I do understand that they are in a very difficult situation because they don't know who to.
14th.
So yeah, they are in a terrible situation.
Yeah, I mean they've got 28 points at 22 games. So I don't think the teams below them would all of a sudden have to start having getting themselves out like the West Hams. I think Burnley and Wolves are going down. That's quite obvious.
The only one that can catch them is West Ham.
Yeah. So,
but I do understand why the board is not spending over there, because they have no idea who they're spending it for at that moment. They don't. Yeah. They know Glasner is going to go. So, do they spend money on Glasner to then have to spend it again with the next manager, or do they just hold the money, wait for the next manager to get in, and then they spend the money? It's a tough situation to be in.
The problem for clubs like Palace is that you have to look at some of the other clubs around them that have come up recently. You look at like Sunderland; they've done amazing business. So I've got a really good manager. A lot of them picked them to be, relegation fodder. Because most of the clubs that have come up in the last few seasons have gone straight back down, and they're defying the odds. Leeds are another one where I feel that they are going to stay up, because they are playing. I think it was a bit shaky, through periods of the first half of the season, but I think they've come on leaps and bounds since playing us. They've took a few scalps like Chelsea. Notts Forest, even though they're languishing 17th right now, with the players they've got, and I think with the manager they've got, I think they're more capable of staying up. I don't think they're going to creep up the table anymore, really, but you'd expect them to still be able to recruit next season and be able to do a better job than they're currently now, depending on who goes and stays next summer. Tottenham, I mean, how on earth people call them a Big Six club, I will never know, because they're not showing it, and they've never won anything apart from the recent Europa League. So their fans really need to pipe down, for me, especially where they're languishing 14th right now. I mean, you haven't improved since last season, and you're not on course to win anything this season. So Bournemouth is a manager, and they've got some really good players. lost a lot of players but recruited well. And I think that's the thing. I think if you can recruit a good manager, keep him for a couple of seasons, and again, churn those players that, Semenyo, just sell them for a good profit and then bring in another young talent and mould him at kind of like how Brighton have operated over a few seasons, then I think, the West Hams and the Crystal Palaces of this world have got to start looking at their model for me and realising that if they're not too careful, they're suddenly going to find themselves not keeping up with the new boys on the block.
Yep.
So
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, Jim, I want to wrap up soon. So is there any other business you want to kind of talk about before we get into our predictions for the Wolves game?
You want to glaze a little bit of Husanov, because I know you like doing that.
Nah, man, I just these next stretch of games, man, it's all hands on deck from the fans, from the players, from the manager, from the staff, to see where we're going to finish out this season. If we're going to be just try to solidify ourselves in top 4, or we're going to try to push Arsenal a little bit here, Champions League as well. So hopefully we can get that mojo back, and hopefully, the fans can just get behind the team and have some energy, because right now I feel like it's not as bad as last season, but I feel like everybody's looking, they're trying to do hit pieces on every player right now. I don't think that's what we need.
Yeah, especially when players are low on confidence. That's the last thing that they need. People going on their backs and just tearing them down.
Yeah.
Big up DC and Steve. Big up.
One of the things I'm kind of thinking is that the next 2 games are home games. And I think with the crowd behind the players, and I would expect the crowd to be behind the players realistically. There's a lot of online City fans that I think, are great online at really criticising it and digging into this team, but I think unfairly at times. But I think, with the home crowd behind them, I think it's what we need right now. For me, as I said before, I still don't have the concerns that some City fans are having on, especially online, of calling for Pep's head. I just don't agree with it. I really don't. I think he's still the best manager in the world, and we're still very lucky to have him. And I still want to see him around for another decade, as far as I'm concerned. If he's doing the job that he's done and continues to do, I still have a lot of faith in him. But yeah, there's time to criticise, but there's also time to get behind the team, and we just have to. The last 2 results have been shambolic. They've been awful, and the performances, have been not great to watch at all. But I feel that this team is now going to get on those stakes. They're going to move on to the next game, and we'll see them put in a shift. Because they know it. I mean, you only have to look at Erling Haaland's comments after the game, how pissed off he was. And I'm sure that wasn't just because of the players around him. I think that was his own performance. So they know it, and it's just now time to back them and get behind them for the Wolves game. So let's move on from the 2 bad results, because we have to. There's no point dwelling on them forever. And get behind them. So, guys, your predictions for the game against Wolves at the weekend. What are you going with? Spartacus?
3-0.
Ed?
Wow, a clean sheet in Guehi's debut, Spartacus.
Elaine is going to be very good beside him.
Oh, you got Elaine starting. Okay. I'm going 2-0.
Not confident in Husanov, are you?
No, man. No, I'm going to take with the last 2 games. I think a 2-0 will be great. I think a 2-0 will be well appreciated.
Yeah, fair enough. So I'm going to read out the other predictions from the other guys. So I'll start off with Rich. Rich has gone for a 2-0. Pat, who, believe it or not, has not gone missing. He is alive and well. He's just been off gallivanting and around Japan from all the messages I've seen. So we look forward to having him back. And apparently he has put in our group message that he will be back for the review at the weekend on Sunday. So it'll be good to have him back. So he's gone for a 3-1. Our good old grumpy Uncle Alan. I think most of you will be not surprised with this prediction. He has gone for a 1-1.
I was about to say draw.
I was expecting a 2-0 to Spurs, to Wolves.
And Martin has just recently put in his prediction because we were waiting on him as usual. He's always late. He's gone for a 3-1. And I did earlier think I was going to go for a 3-0, but actually I'm just going to change mine because I can and I'm on the channel right now. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 as well. My optimism was with Guehi coming in and putting in a really good performance and keeping clean sheet, but I just feel that depending on who starts, if Nuno starts and Kuznets starts as well with Guehi, then I feel that that's possibly a good clean sheet to have. And without Nori, I think that's possible. But if Nunes isn't available, then I do worry about that clean sheet. So I'm going to think that possibly Nunes may not start. And that's why I'm a bit hesitant to feel that we could concede at least one goal. So I'm going to go for a 3-1. So yeah. So I'd like to thank everyone who's joined us tonight. Really big up to everyone who's joined us, Governor and Jack earlier on. Obviously, thank you to Spartacus and Ed as always. Great to have you guys on. But Martin will be back. Obviously, I think if you weren't here at the beginning, his dad isn't currently well, so he's having to support him in hospital right now. So we wish Martin and his dad and the rest of the family our support and thinking of them. He will hopefully be back at the weekend if he's able to. If not, he will be back next week. And like I said, I will try and be around at the weekend. If not, it will be Pat and Rich, and hopefully Ed and Spartacus. Obviously, if you're around, mate, more than happy to have you on again. And yeah, thank you to everyone who's watched tonight and took part in the comments. And thank you so much. It's really appreciated that everyone who watched the channel and your support. Please don't forget to like before you leave, because it really does help the channel a lot. And obviously, if you're not currently subscribed, please have a think about it. Again, helps grow, helps us compete with some of the other channels out there, because we just want to kind of grow and get better at this. I realise I haven't kept up with all the comments tonight, and I do apologise. But it's, for me, I find it really difficult to host and do the chat. So thanks for the patience. But yeah, thank you to everyone, and we will see you after the Wolves game. Good night, everyone.